And again, that was where you could see an awful lot of the integration of women into the combat forces.
You mentioned that. You mentioned the role of women in.
Yeah, it was. I was always interested because in Canada around that time, it was a time when the Canadians were debating and talking. You know, it goes on forever in Canada,
Right.
of women in the armed forces.
Yeah.
And they wanted, for example, they wanted 15% of the armed forces to be Aboriginal people in
Okay.
Canada. No problem with that.
Right.
But then they wanted 15%, or they were talking about it in those days, to have women in the armed forces. Well, I thought they should be seeing what the Eritreans do,
Okay.
because roughly, talking to them, I just know what I'm told.
Right.
And the Eritreans were saying quite seriously that if you had roughly 30% women in the combat arms,
Right.
the relationship was a normal kind of functioning. There were, and I saw them myself, women platoon commanders and company commanders in positions of authority, having no trouble ordering men around. I mean, they were trained and they knew what they were doing. That's all that a soldier wants, is having his superiors knowing what he's doing.
Right. Yeah.
And they said that if they had 30%, it was normal, but if they had 5%,
Right.
8% or lower than that,
Yeah.
you tended to get jealousies, you had love affairs,
Right.
you had the men reluctant to put the women at risk and sort of thing. You had a lot of problems.
Right.
To this day, the Canadians always make a fuss about women serving in the armed forces in combat roles.
How much would you say?
And now they have their certificates around 2%.
Around 2% Canadian.
And that's too low.
Yeah.
You know, they adjust it. There's all kinds of sort of certain problems. They've ironed them out a lot, but
Right.
they've never really caught on to the same degree. But I think the women, you know, because Eritrea is not an environment where male and female are sort of on an equal level, I think. And extraordinarily, because they're fighting a war, they had no option.
Okay.
They had to bring, I think, women into the thing. And I think it is significant that they never viewed themselves as a military regime.
Right.
You had the fighters, you didn't have soldiers,
Yeah.
fighters, and you had strongest. I don't know all the internal pressures that went on, but you know, there is no, and this is the second time in there. I wasn't in Asmara the first time, but the second time in Asmara and at the coast, there is no real feeling of internal tension.
Yeah.
People got along well, and it was in the middle of a war even in Asmara. You had the main street would be blocked off with cafes and coffee and things.
Yeah.
And you know, it had some problems because difficult for a foreigner. There weren't that many. Not that many foreign journalists even were interested there, I think.
Yeah.
And they very difficult because they would only use cash. You know, they couldn't use a credit card.
Right.
So whatever cash you go with, you've got to nurse fairly carefully.